Wondering how you can become better at running your business? Entrepreneurship can be stressful. There's too much to do and not enough time. If you're isolated in your daily decisions, have no fear. Success and balance are possible. Welcome to the Small Business Answer Man podcast, where you master the art of running a successful business using practical advice from experts who want to help you succeed. Now, here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Welcome. We're glad to have you back again this week. I told you in this second quarter, we've been talking about that 6P business owner formula: people, promotion, pricing, productivity, profit, and processes. Well, we're going to talk quite a bit about that people today. I'm so excited to have my guest on today because I'm telling you, he's busy because he's one day away from launching a new book. So Joey, it's great to have you, but I'm going to ask you first before we get into that. What problem will you help solve for our listeners today?
Gary, I think so many listeners and so many small business owners are struggling when it comes to their people. They're struggling to find great people. They're struggling to get them to accept a job offer. They're struggling to get them to show up for work. They're struggling to get them to contribute long-term to their organization. To paraphrase off your P's, I want to talk today about people and process, a system, a methodology you can adopt in your business, whether you're a team of 2 or a team of 200, to help your business think more strategically about your people and get them engaged and get them retained and get them all swimming in the same direction together.
Well, I know this is going to be a great conversation because today with us is Joey Coleman. He helps companies keep their customers and their employees. He's an award-winning speaker. He shares his first 100 days methodology with improving customer and employee retention with organizations around the world, like Whirlpool, Volkswagen, even in Australia, Zappos. His Wall Street Journal #2 best-selling book, Never Lose a Customer Again, shows how to turn any sale into a lifelong customer. And his upcoming book, Never Lose an Employee Again, which launches tomorrow, details of the framework of companies around the world can use to reduce turnover and increase employee engagement. Joey, it is great to have you back on the podcast.
Gary, it is a thrill to be back. Thank you so much for the kind invitation. And thanks for everybody who was joining in and listening. I got to tell you, I get a chance to do a lot of podcasts. I feel very honored, but I was particularly excited about this one. And the reason I was excited about this one is because A, I know you're a rock star host, but B, I wrote this book for small business owners. It doesn't mean it can't be used for large business owners, but what it does mean is that when I was looking at the case studies, the examples, the recommendations, the techniques, the tactics, I wanted to come up with things that fellow small business owners like me could actually implement in their businesses. That didn't require a head of HR or an HR department, didn't require hundreds of thousands of dollars of investments in new systems and tools, but instead could be things that the great small business owners around the world could put into practice in a matter of a day or two for less than $100 that would move the dial in how they interact with their people and their prospective employees.
Well, I love that because Joey, is so important. Just what you said in the outset of the struggles, because I'm seeing that from business owners. And to be quite honest, it's driving some of them out of business. And this whole podcast is to help people really feel, how can I do things better? And hiring is one of those challenges right now. It's about getting good people, but it's also, we have to have a process that you've talked about and that I believe in also that's so important. But I'm curious because I have to go here because, you know, you're known for your expertise around customer experience and you even wrote a book on that, but now you want the employee experience. So share with me what kind of took you to that path.
Well, really 2 things, Gary. Number one, I've been a customer experience guy for 20 plus years, and I had been working in customer experience for about all of 5 minutes before I realized that you can't have a great customer experience if you don't have great employees delivering that customer experience. So I figured that out fairly early on. But what I also recognized is in many organizations, Customer experience and employee experience are seen as two totally different things. Customer experience is kind of the marketing team, the sales team, your customer service team. And employee experience usually sits over in kind of the HR department. With all due respect to my friends in HR, when somebody tells you, hey, we're going to invite HR to the meeting as well, most people get nervous. They don't think this is going to be a value add conversation. They think someone's in trouble. And what I realized is that because most people treat them separately, I wanted to devote separate books to them. So the first book, as you said, Never Lose a Customer Again, all about keeping your customers. I then realized we needed the companion book. We needed the Never Lose an Employee Again book. And briefly, I was getting ready to write it. I already had the deal with my publisher. We were in the throes of the research and the case study interviews and getting everything together. And along came the COVID pandemic. And I got to tell you, I reached out to my publisher. I said, stop the presses. Always wanted to be able to yell that, in a setting. Stop the presses. We've got to hold off, because I believe that the landscape for employment on the planet is about to change. And I don't want to make it seem like I was prescient or Nostradamus, but the reality is it did. And so what we've been able to do is incorporate additional case studies, additional perspectives that take into account the reality of both remote work and the fact that many of the expectations that our employees had pre-COVID are different now post-COVID. And happy to dive in deeper and talk about kind of some of those observations and trends.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is realizing that it has changed. And for some business owners, I'll be honest, they're having a hard mindset shift of that change. So I think let's dive in there as some of the things you shared. And then even if you want to get into what the 8 phases are when it's appropriate and stuff, let's share some of that, because I think our people, they need to get that shift, because business owners, it's different to be in business today than it was 3 years ago. We just have to admit it.
Gary, it's so true. And let me begin by stating I empathize with my fellow business owners about the huge mindset shift and philosophical shift that we're being asked to make right now. It's challenging. It's tough. I get it that the employees that are showing up in your business today aren't like the employees that showed up even 10 years ago, let alone 20 or 30 or 40 when we all were coming up and being employees, right? So I get that the times have changed. That being said, I know that the most resilient people on the planet are small business owners. Heck, you have to be. Starting and running a business is not easy. You didn't do this because it was going to be a walk in the park. You did this probably because you had a vision of what it was going to allow you to achieve, whether in terms of the impact in your community or the people you serve, or personally in your freedom and flexibility. I always joke around. Small business owners are the only people in the world that will happily work 80 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours a week for someone else. It's really interesting how it works. But now that we kind of recognize the empathetic aspect of like, it's tough, I get it. Here's what I also know about small business owners. They are masters at wrecking reality. Hey, this is the situation. What do I need to do to adapt? What do I need to do to be able to deliver a remarkable experience? And we are being called to do that once again. As employers, as business owners, as leaders, we're being called on to lead. So what do we need to do? We need to recognize that the expectation of our employees have changed. We need to recognize that the landscape has changed. And once we do that, we need to say, okay, what do I do now? And that's where I would recommend looking at the employee journey as 8 distinct phases. There are 8 key steps that a prospective employee will go through from the time they first hear about your business to the time that they are a raving fan advocate. Now, I'll give you a quick overview of each of them, Gary. They all start with the letter A, and the reason for that is not to confuse you folks, but rather to think about it from a context of, if you get all of these right, it's like getting straight A's on the report card from your employees. They think you're doing a remarkable job. Okay, here are the 8 phases. Phase number 1, the assess phase. In the assess phase, a prospective employee is trying to decide whether or not they want to work for you. They're looking at your job posting or your job listing. They're checking out the careers page on your website. They might be looking at your social media accounts. They're talking to other people they might know that work at your organization. They apply, they send over their resume, and they're going through your interview process. I liken this in dating to the courting stage, right? This is kind of where everybody's figuring out, just what is this relationship going to be, if anything. We then come to phase two, the accept phase. In the accept phase, the company, the organization, the owner says, you're the candidate we want to hire, and they extend an offer. And that candidate accepts our job offer. So what are we doing in that stage to make sure that offer is remarkable and that we drive them to the acceptance? We then come to phase three, Gary, and I got to tell you, phase three is something that many business owners are familiar with in the customer context, but maybe not as much in the employee context. And that is the affirm phase. You know, with customers, we talk about buyer's remorse. When a customer begins to doubt the decision that they just made to purchase our product or sign up for our service. Allow me to introduce your listeners and all of you out there to a concept that may not be as familiar, which is new hires remorse. It's a feeling that is equally as detrimental to your long-term success when somebody who's just accepted the job offer begins to doubt the decision they just made. Should I have negotiated for more salary, a better benefits package, more vacation? Should I have waited a bit? Because, I was interviewing with some other places and I hadn't heard back from them yet. And I tried to string it along as I could to see if I could get two offers to go against each other, but I couldn't do that. So we're back at the office high-fiving that they accepted our offer. Meanwhile, our new employee is sitting at home or their current job going, gosh, I hope I made the right choice, but I'm not sure if I did. We got to close that emotional delta in the affirm phase by reinforcing their decision. We then come to phase four.
Joey, I have to share
phase. Yeah,
I have to share one thing on the affirm. That is so true because I have a son that just graduated and he accepted it. And that's what's been going on because he doesn't start because he wanted the summer off in the middle of August. And that affirm stage is huge, folks. So just had to share.
Gary, no, I so appreciate you sharing that. And here's the thing. As a general rule, the bigger the role in your organization, the longer the gap between when they accept and when they start, right? If you're talking about a frontline employee, kind of an incoming level employee, starting out, they might accept the job 2 weeks later. But if you're looking for like a more senior member of your team, they might take a month, 2 months before they actually start. What are you doing during that quiet period? Gary, so many companies, and I'd be curious let's not name the employer or put the pressure on your son, but so many companies fail to communicate during that time period. They hire a recent grad, who's fresh out of school, and they say, oh, all right, we'll let you take your summer, enjoy your last summer of freedom. We'll see you in the fall. And what do they do during that time period? Nothing. There's no communication. There's no excitement. Heck, invite them to the summer picnic. Ask them to come to a happy hour. Do something that allows this new employee to feel connected to the new job. That's what we want to do and what we want to focus on. All right, back to the 8 phases. So we come to phase 4, the activate phase. This is the only step in the entire process, Gary, that is based on a single day. And that day is the first day on the job. And the secret here is to lean into the lyrics of the wonderful Bonnie Raitt, country music legend. When she sings, give them something to talk about. What are you going to do to create such an amazing experience on that first day that when they get home and open the door to their spouse, their significant other, their roommate, their parents, whoever it is, and that person says, how was the first day at work? Have you given them something to talk about? Or are they going to say, well, I filled out some paperwork and some tax withholding forms, and I opted into a 401k. I looked at 38 different options for healthcare, and I'm not exactly sure which one I picked. I just marked one of the boxes. Then I read through some policy manuals and watched some videos that seemed like they were filmed in the 70s about harassment in the workplace. And then I went to, the afternoon. They didn't really have anything for me to do, so they sent me home early and said, see you tomorrow. That's not what our first day should look like, friends. Our first day should be remarkable. Then we come to the place, Gary, that most organizations start to fall off the rails. And that is phase 5, the acclimate phase. Acclimate phase starts on day 2 and runs for weeks, maybe months, while this new employee is getting used to your way of doing business. We then come to phase 6, the accomplish phase, when they have their first accomplished achievement at work, whether that's their first sale, their first project completed, their first milestone. What are we doing to celebrate that achievement with them? If we get them to the accomplish phase, we might be able to get them to phase 7, the adopt phase, where the employee becomes loyal to us and only us. They're not looking for jobs elsewhere. They're not answering that call from the recruiter. And only if they become an adopter do we have the chance to hopefully invite them to the next phase, the 8th phase, the final phase, nirvana, the holy grail, where they become an advocate, singing our praises far and wide, writing reviews about us on Yelp and Glassdoor and all those sites. Whenever we have an open position, they're inviting their friends, their colleagues, the smartest people they've ever worked with to come and apply for the job. The problem, Gary, and I'll conclude the 8 phases with this, is so often, once they're in the door, we start taking them for granted. And the longer they're with us, the more we take them for granted. Isn't it a crazy thing about humans? You know, we see this in our personal lives as well. When we're dating, everybody's all about the flowers, the little special notes, the special gifts, the little unexpected calls and text messages. After you're a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years into it, it gets a little rote. It gets a little routine. We've got to counterbalance and counteract that natural human tendency to take things for granted and continue to invest in our relationships with our employees.
Well, we're just getting started here, folks, but we're going to take a short commercial break, but we'll be back with the Small Business Answer Man podcast in just a minute. And now back to the show. Well, Joey, you shared a lot of different things in that 8 phases, and I love how you've set it up, and so important. And each phase is important in its own right. But let's really talk about, because I remember reading your book, Never Lose a Customer Again. You stated that most businesses stall out, guiding that customer through the journey between the activate and the accomplish stage. So where do businesses most frequently stall out during the employee experience side of things?
You know, Gary, ironically enough, it's at the same time period. It's that time period between the first day on the job and when they're actually up to speed, achieving, accomplishing. I think what happens is, and I understand this, I respect this, you know, business owners, especially small business owners, are busy people. We don't necessarily have the time, we believe, to hold the hand of a new employee. We kind of give them a little training, throw them in a couple things, and then we're like, hey, good luck, go get it done. And then when they don't get up to speed quickly, when they don't succeed, we're frustrated with them. That doesn't make sense to me, Gary. I can't take, you know, it's kind of like taking a child, you know, and I don't mean to be disparaging of a young employee and imply that they're childish, but, you know, if I've got a child that hasn't learned how to walk, and I go, well, look, watch me. And I walk across the room. I'm like, there you go. You saw me walk. Now you should be able to do it. That's not the way this works. It doesn't work that way when we're kids. Doesn't work that way when we're adults. We've got to think strategically about the way people learn. One of the case studies in the book, there's over 50 from all 7 continents, small, medium, and large businesses. You name the industry, we've got somebody in there. But one of the case studies I'd like to highlight in this regard is a company called JLM Talent Partners. Now, JLM helps large construction projects find architects and builders. That's their specialty. If you're building a big building, a big road, some giant infrastructure piece, a bridge, you go to JLM Partners and you say, put together the team. So they actually specialize in recruiting and onboarding and getting people on board. So I wanted to know, how do the guys that do this think about onboarding their own people? And they do it in a really unique way, Gary. They believe in teaching their people versus training their people. Now, let's stop and look at that slight distinction, okay? Often when we think about training, we're talking about training a dog, training a pet. Teaching implies that we're going to give you the information so that you can fend for yourself going forward, that you have the knowledge, the understanding to make good choices and make good decisions in the future. And the way they break their teaching down is they look at the three ways humans learn. Humans learn visually, they learn auditorially, and they learn kinesthetically. They learn by seeing, they learn by hearing, they learn by doing. And
Right.
that's what JLM does. Every employee goes through a process and they talk about, well, how do we make a phone call with a potential candidate? Well, first, we're going to show you how it works. You're going to sit and observe someone making a call. You're going to watch them. In the same instance, you're going to hear them. When we're done, we're going to show you a piece of paper that details the checklist they just went through. And then kinesthetically, we're going to put you on a phone and we're going to switch spots and I'm going to watch you and I'm going to listen to you, new employee, while you go through the process. And Gary, they do this for every step in their activities. How to send an email, how to reply to an email, how to answer the phone, how to make a phone call, how to return a voicemail message, all the little tiny minutia. Now, some people listening might say, Joey, goodness, I don't have the time. I don't have the time to do that. Well, folks, if you don't have the time to teach your people, what do you have time for? Why did you bother hiring them? Because if you're not going to teach them, they're never going to be able to deliver the type of experience, the type of efficiency, the type of effectiveness that I know was in the back of your mind when you extended the job offer.
Yeah. And what's the challenge there? Joey's been telling us it's not just about the people, but they have the process in place too. And that becomes the real key because then you're setting them up for success. Plus, they feel more comfortable. Those little things that make a difference there each and every time sets that customer apart, which, if you really think about it, who's the customer? The employee.
So true. So true, Gary. You know, I hired a new personal assistant not too long ago. And on her second day on the job, I said, hey, we're going to do an hour of observing this morning. She said, okay. She works remotely. And we logged in and I shared my screen. And for an hour, she watched me answer emails. And I said, I want you to watch what I type. I want you to watch which ones I answer now versus which ones I snooze for later. And as we go through this, anytime I do something that you're like, that's not the way I would do it, I want you to stop me and ask me to explain. Gary, we did this 3 times. We did an hour on day 2. We did an hour on day 3. We did an hour on day 4. By day 5, she was in my email. And she was able to anticipate what was going on. Now, on day 5, did I have her sending out all the emails? No, sir. I wanted to make sure we were good to go a little bit. But on day 5, she made all the draft emails. And then on day 6, we sat down and we looked at them and I said, yes, that one's exactly how I would have sent it. Send. That one, I would have added these 2 sentences and here's why. Send. This one, great as is. Send. Okay, this one we kind of missed the mark, but I'm realizing now that I never told you about this person and how we handled this. And this person's a little different. They're a little quirky. We got to massage it a little bit. When we teach our people via a process, to your point, they actually learn. Great. Most creatives, I came up as a creative. Most creatives rebel at process. They're like, don't tie my hands. Don't tell me what to do. Salespeople are notorious for this. Don't tell me how to do my meetings. Don't tell me what kind of information. Here's the thing. Process is your friend. Process is repeatable. Process is scalable. Process allows you to have more time for the spontaneous situations that come along. Because I don't know about you, Gary, but every business I've ever been involved in, it's almost like the smaller, the more fires we deal with, right? That you're the bottle washer, the cook, the cleaner, you're doing all the jobs. And it's like when you start to bring people on, you want them to think of the business the way you do. Well, if that's the case, you've got to explain how you think. You've got to explain how you view these interactions and put it into a process.
Well, some great information. And I tell you, I know you need to go pick the book up because we're not going to be able to cover it all. We're coming up on our time and I want to share more, but Never Lose an Employee Again goes on sale tomorrow. So if you're listening to this on Monday, the 26th of June, guess what? We were lucky to get Joey because I know how busy he is. I'm sure I'm not the only one. So we're going to abide by that. But before I let you go, I want to talk about one thing because both of your books talk about this. I know you've written other books too, but one of your core frameworks is that first 100 days. The meaning that the first 100 days on the job make or break the entire employee experience. I want you to share there so they hear about that and how important that is. We talked a little bit about it with my son, but why is that so important, that first 100 days?
Oh, Gary, here's the thing, and I'm so glad you asked this question. It's not just that I think the first 100 days is important. It's that your people think the first 100 days are important.
Yes.
The challenge is they probably aren't able to articulate that to you. They're not going to explain that to you. They're not going to warn you or tell you, but this is how their internal biology works. There's a bunch of statistics we could look at, but one just screams right to the front of this conversation. Many small business owners pay their people hourly. Their employees are hourly employees. So what do we know about hourly employees? Well, we know that statistically, globally, across all industries, half of new hourly employees will decide to quit their jobs within the first 100 days.
Wow.
Half. I'm going to let people pick themselves up off the floor, the treadmill, or if you're driving, sorry if I just made you swerve as you're listening to this. Half. Why is that? Because they don't have a strong onboarding process and getting people up to speed. You ask them, do you think that was a strong onboarding process? Just that question, not any details about what you did. Just, do you feel it was strong? If they say yes, 70% of employees will stay for at least 3 years. Folks, it's that simple, but it's that challenging. You got to focus on the first 100 days. In the first 100 days, you're laying the foundation for the relationship. You're making the deposits into the karmic bank account so that when things do go wrong in the future, you can weather the storm. You're teaching them. You're showing them how the business operates with a process, with a methodology that is designed to slowly bring them up to speed instead of designed to throw them in the fray and say, good luck, fend for yourself, which is what most business owners actually do.
Yeah, and that's why it's truly about onboarding. I know you and I have same philosophies in that. You have to onboard them into your company. Don't tell them you're doing an orientation. I mean, when I had my company, we had over 150 employees. I would spend them, not the first day, but the first week within them, I would spend at least 3 hours with them onboarding and training on what I wanted them to know about the history of our company and kind of what set our standards apart. You don't have to do 3 hours, but you have to onboard them. But if you're not doing that, who is and what's happening in each one of those areas? So, Joey, I know we could go on and on. There's so much great information that you have in the book. I haven't got to see everything, but you've given me some expert excerpts that I've been able to read and look at and stuff. And it's going to be another bestseller and stuff. And it goes on sale tomorrow. So Never Lose an Employee Again. Please check it out. I'm sure any of the book sources, they can get it online or in a bookstore anywhere that's out there.
Absolutely, Gary. In fact, one thing that was really important to me that I'll flag for our amazing listeners here at Small Business Answer Man is I wanted the book to be available in the format that works for you. If you like hardcover books, you're good to go. If you like ebooks, you're good to go. If you've liked the sound of my voice, as we've shared some of these conversations with Gary today, you're good to go because the audiobook is narrated by me. All three are available tomorrow, wherever you get your books. It'd be a real treat to me, and I'd greatly appreciate it if you'd give it a look. And here's the thing that you'll find in the book. If you buy the book and you read the book and you get to the end and you're like, you know what? Didn't get the value. Just didn't bring the thunder, Joey. Didn't feel that it applied to my business. My email's in the book. You send me an email, I'll refund the cost of you buying the book. That's how confident I am and how much I value investments that small business owners make into resources, knowledge, teaching, training, and tools for their business. I want this to be a valuable tool for you that you can use in your business. And I think you're going to get the return on investment. Last thing I'll say, if I may, Gary, because you said
Sure.
something that I absolutely loved here. You said, you don't need to spend 3 hours, but, spend some time with your people. Ask yourself this. How long do you want that new hire to stay with you? You want them to stay a month? Spend a few minutes. You want them to stay a year? You darn well better spend hours, if not days. The longer they will stay is determined, the length of time they will stay is determined by the amount of time you invest in them, especially in those first 100 days. Don't just let it be day one. And on day two, good luck, go figure it out. Spread it out over a week. Even better, spread it out over a month. Do daily training every day for 30 days, maybe even if it's only for 30 minutes each day, or, a half hour or an hour, whatever it may be. Just focus on long, sustained growth, sustained teaching. It'll make all the difference in your employee experience.
You are so right there. That becomes the real key because they become loyal to you and
Yes,
the
sir.
company then. And that's that
Exactly.
longevity. I was in retail sales in the wireless business. And, my whole thing was I wanted them to stay 6 months. I got 18 months out of them. Some of those people that I had for a year, they was with me 3 to 5 years. And then I had those people that were with me the whole time that we had the business, because you make that difference because they become connected to you. And one of my greatest satisfactions is now, Joey, when I see those people. I was at a game last summer and I had someone jump off the stands and come up and say, "How have you all been doing?" And that makes you feel good because it's not just about the money that you make and the profits you do in the business. You made an impact on those individuals. And the
Gary,
best
you're
part,
so true. You're so true. And here's the thing, folks, for everyone listening, we talked about those 8 phases. That person that jumped out of the stands was an advocate.
yeah,
Here's the kicker, folks. An advocate doesn't have to be on your payroll. They can be a former employee who you treated so well, especially when they exited. Don't kick them out the door when they leave. Applaud them. Thank them for the contribution they've made. Wish them the best. Support their future endeavors. I've got a whole chapter in the book that talks about when people are leaving, how to make sure they exit in a way that is as beautiful and as supportive as the way you entered them into the business, because that's how you get people jumping out of the stands at a ball game going, "Gosh, I loved working for you. I've told everybody I know I loved working for you. Have any open positions? I have a friend that might be looking for something." That's how you build advocates.
yeah. Great information. I'm telling you, if you've loved this conversation, you got to go pick up the book, Audible, whatever works for you. He told you all the different areas. I think you do have a call to action. If they email receipt, they can actually pre-order. So today you could even order it and stuff, and book bonus at joeycoleman.com, and you'll receive a special bonus from him. His website is joeycoleman.com. We've got all that in show notes. I know you're busy people, so you're not just listening to it. You may be a little excited right now because you noticed Joey and I was pretty excited, but we wanted to share this information, and I'm just so excited. I can't believe that we got him the day before his big launch. But Joey, thank you for giving us your time, and thank you for sharing your expertise. And I can't wait to read the whole book. I am an Audible person occasionally, but this book I will sit there and read because I'll be highlighting to share with my business owners things they need to put in practice.
Oh, Gary, thank you so much for having me on the show. And thanks to everybody who's listened in. I really wish you all the best with your people and your processes, especially in those first 100 days and beyond.
Now, I have one more question I've got to ask you so I don't forget is, what's the best business tip or advice you would give the business owners?
Oh, the best business tip or advice I'd give, and I actually talk about this early on in the book. So many business owners say, "I wish my employees cared as much about the business as I do." If you want that, all you need to do, care about your employees as much as you care about your business. I know you do. I know you care about your employees. I know many business owners around the world that they love their people, but make sure you're showing them and telling them on a regular basis. You can't thank your people enough. You can't show gratitude and appreciation to your employees enough. There's always room for more. Do that, and you're good to go. Your business will be successful and will succeed long term.
Great advice. Now, I'm telling you, I always give one action item. The action item's pretty easy. Go get yourself a copy of the book, either Audible or whatever it is. Make sure you get it. Never lose an employee again. Joey Coleman. Check out his website, joeycoleman.com, and that's your action item. But then I tell you, make sure you read it and then take action. Decide the first thing that you're going to start implementing. What is the number one thing that you're going to implement and put in the process that he shared with that? And then there's probably more than one that you need, but just start with one process, because otherwise, if you don't start with one, you'll never get to 2 or 3. So start with that one. Come back next week. We'll have another great guest. Remember, like and share this podcast so other business owners get to know about it. And also this great information, they will know about it at that time. Joey, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks so much, Gary.
Make it a great day.
That's all the time we have for this week. To continue your journey, head over to smallbusinessanswerman.biz to access the tools and resources mentioned in today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with someone who would benefit from listening. That's smallbusinessanswerman.biz. Until next time, remember, when you find the right solutions, your business grows and you get your time back.